there's a squeeze coming on metals, and that's the good news.
Special coverage of the New Orleans Investment Conference is brought to you by Victoria Gold, leading Yukon's new gold rush. Welcome back to the New Orleans Investment Conference. I'm Kai Hoffmann, the JR Mining Guy on Twitter and CEO of the Soar Financial Group, and I'm joined by Brent Cook, founder. What's the official title now at Exploration Insights? Advisor. Senior advisor at Exploration Insights.
Yeah.
Geologist by background, obviously. We've had him on the program, and I think you need a lot of introduction. So it's great to have you. It's good to see you in New Orleans. Always great.
Yeah.
Saw each other last, I think, in Vegas in late March, where the mood was a bit different.
It was much better.
It was a much better mood. It was right after the first Fed rate hike, before we realized that the party's over.
Yep.
And now we're sitting here and discussing tax loss selling, another drop in gold, what to buy, if to buy, when to buy. And we'll get into that, I guess. And let's start off with your presentation title, or with your presentation, though. You had a 20-minute presentation on stage yesterday. It was a full house. What did you talk about?
Well, the title was Accurate Observations, Inaccurate Conclusions. And I gave some real-life examples of where you can observe something. For instance, I think the first thing I did was carbon dioxide versus temperature over the past 800,000 years.
No.
And the observation is, well, global warming, the warming and the CO2 increase comes 200 to 800 years after the actual initiation of warming. So the conclusion, inaccurate conclusion, is that therefore CO2 is not causing warming.
No.
That's inaccurate. It is this time because it's different. So anyway, I went through and explained why that is. And then we went into mining stocks, and one of the first ones I used was a lot of companies with, marginal deposits, we'll call them, will compare themselves on a market cap per ounce in the ground basis with other companies, saying we're undervalued. There's a 10x appreciation potential here. Where in fact, the deposit's no good. To be honest.
To be honest. But that's a good inaccurate conclusions.
Exactly.
Right? I think that's the theme here, interpreting exploration news. You read headline numbers, let's say you read 100 meters of 0.8 grams gold, right? This sounds fantastic at first, but then you see where it is and you look at location, there's or depth, it doesn't give you the depth where it was hit, some of those holes have been hit 700 meters deep.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an example that comes to mind, I don't want to mention it, but I think you've talked about it before.
I have.
So that sort of doesn't fit the narrative, right? So is that sort of what you talked about then yesterday as well?
Yeah, it's really important to view these results in context. As you say, where it's located, how deep it is, what's the metallurgy? Is it oxidized, or is it sulfide? Is it refractory? Meaning, how hard is it to recover? Those things all play into what would initially look like a really good deposit. And I talked about metal equivalents, gold equivalent or silver equivalent. And the example I gave was a company reported 150 meters of, 150 grams. No, it's 400 meters, 150 grams silver equivalent. Yet the silver only comprised 6% of that value. So it's
misleading. More of a cadmium equivalent than usually, or I've seen that mixed in.
Yeah, that gets
before.
thrown in. Yeah, the more stuff they throw in, for gold and silver, it's probably okay, assuming the recovery is simple. But when you start throwing in other, base metals and weird stuff, they require often a different type of recovery, and so it's not equivalent.
But they're not payables. You don't get paid on cadmium; it's a penalty on the concentrate.
Generally, yeah, that's right.
So it's how does that make sense? It should be subtracted from it, not added to it.
Exactly.
So that's another discussion, is equivalence as well. You just gave your opinion, but is there a way to sort of get rid of it or to look through that? Is there something in the fine print you look for when you see it?
Well, certainly, and they'll break out this, assay equivalent into, percent zinc, lead, silver, tin, whatever. So you break that out, and then what was the silver percent represent of the whole thing? And in the example I gave, it was 6%, but it was still reported as a silver equivalent, and it wasn't.
That doesn't
so
make
it's
it,
this. The point being, this is not a silver deposit.
No.
It might be probably an economic deposit, but it's a polymetallic deposit. It's not a silver deposit.
You just gave me our YouTube title, by the way. This is not a silver deposit. So I think, because silver works really well, I've noticed on YouTube, so we got to talk a bit more silver.
Oh yeah, silver squeeze. We got to talk about the
Silver
squeeze. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that works really well. But any companies you're looking at right now? In March, everything was more like we were optimistic. We looked at ideas. Now it looks like we're looking more for ideas what to divest and not what to buy.
What I've been doing personally is I've dumped everything. I've taken my tax losses already. I took them in August, basically. And I bought a couple of companies recently, but with the idea that I'm probably going to watch them go down for a while. My sense is what I'm here at this show and what I'm spending most of my time is I want to find maybe a dozen companies that I really believe and think have the potential to find a major discovery or have a major deposit that's high enough margin that some other company is going to come in and buy them out. They've got to have at least a year and a half of cash, or I can see that they're going to get it. And I'm going to pick not the bottom, but I think there's no doubt in my mind we're going into recession.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind the shit's going to hit the fan by the end of this year. And that's the time you want to step in and start buying these companies that you know can make it through the downturn.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Good point, and we briefly talked about tax loss selling, and you mentioned it, you already did that in August. So why are you buying right now and not waiting till, let's say, end of November, where you see more of a clearer trend?
Well,
although the trend has already been clear, like for the last 8 months.
I'm not going to pick the bottom.
Yeah.
What have I bought recently? I bought Arizona Sonora Copper. And it's down from when I bought it. But I went there and looked at it. Joe and I went and looked at it.
I've been there, actually.
It's a good deposit. And it's not recognized out there. I bought Bravo, which
Brazil.
is in Brazil, a nickel PGM deposit.
Yeah.
Tons of money, excellent management, good deposit, good jurisdiction. With the expectation that it's going to come off in price. Yeah. But I'm not going to pick the bottom, so I'm just, I'm not spending much money. If I buy something, I'm going to sell something to buy it with. So I'm not deploying new cash right now.
Okay. What was one of the key takeaways of your presentation? What was on the last slide that you wanted investors to walk away from or with?
Subscribe to Exploration Insights.
Okay, the second to last slide.
Second to last slide. What was it? Basically, do your due diligence. This sector is going to rock, but it's going to be tough before it gets there. And I think there's no doubt that we are not producing and finding enough new deposits to fill the demand. I mean, everything we use right now, your folks sitting at home listening to this, there's nothing in their room that does not have some connection to metal somehow. And that's just going to get to be bigger and bigger. And it's taking, for a big copper deposit, from discovery to production, is a 10 to 20 year process. So we're not, there's a squeeze coming on metals. And that's the good news, I guess.
Talking about that in more detail, do you have a regional focus where you're looking? Are you going to stay in North America, South America? Like, how attractive is Peru and Chile for you right now? Kazakhstan I've recently been to. I thought that looked great.
Kazakhstan is good. It comes, the country, and then it comes down to the real locality. Like Argentina, Santa Cruz province, great place to be. Yeah. Mendoza province, a bad place to be, And then it even comes down to where you're located in terms of, is your deposit under a nice church?
Yeah.
Or a
had
rich
that
guy's
issue
backyard?
before.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it depends on the jurisdiction. I mean, there's places I won't go.
Because you mentioned Arizona, for example. Like, so
okay,
thinking,
that's
like,
a good point.
Will you go into the U.S.? And Arizona, Sonora, since you brought up the example, like they're permitted and they're on private.
Exactly.
So
Arizona has had some real problems with companies getting their permits and such in water. So Arizona, Sonora has the water.
No.
They've on private land. They're mostly permitted, and the county and city they're in is on board.
No.
So, you've checked off the real problems are not there. So that's good. You can go to someplace else in Arizona, and it ain't going to work.
Exactly. Now it leads me a bit to the NIMBY discussions as well, like not in my backyard discussions, and we can spin that into a bigger conversation because it comes back down to inflation. Because if you want to bring back facility or like mining back into the country, you have higher labor costs than elsewhere in the world, and you can't control some of the things that happen elsewhere.
Yeah.
And inflation, it's a bigger topic. I think you can hold. It's not transitory if you look at it, because all of a sudden you have cost inflation because U.S. dollar is more expensive right now. The U.S. dollar is extremely strong. Bringing it home and having to buy abroad makes it more expensive. So we can go all into
That's
that.
way over my head.
Oh, it's like, that's why I have experts on, to be honest. So that's why I bring them on. So do we have that discussion, right? No, it's like overall theme here at the conference. Is there like a buzzword that you've picked up? Like one, I'll give you an example. Digital currencies was one I picked up here last 24 hours. I heard quite often.
Yeah, I don't really pay attention to a lot of what goes on here. I mean, there's some really smart people here, really great presentations. This is a great show. But there's always a theme that next year gold's going to the moon, next year the dollar's going to crash. And I've been hearing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
and you know, it's...
We thought it was going to happen 10 days ago. And then we're back at the same level we were 11 days ago.
Exactly. So. I don't know how many people I've seen claim they called the bottom 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I guess they're calling it again.
Okay. So what keeps you busy now the next 3 months? What are you looking at? You said you're doing some due diligence on companies you're going to buy.
Yeah, I'm going to go visit some projects in Nevada later this month.
Yeah.
I'm going to go play a beach volleyball tournament in Mexico in November.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. You're living the life. Senior advisor.
Exactly.
Love it. Fantastic. Brent, thanks so much for coming on. Always love our conversations.
Yeah, likewise.
And where can we find more? Brent Cook Geo on Twitter, I think.
Yeah, I am on Twitter, and then Exploration Insights. Go there. There's, information for free, and if you ask Joe, he'll probably send you a sample letter just to see what he does, which is, it is the best letter out there in my opinion.
Well, I'm a subscriber, so you don't have to sell me.
Right.
Fantastic. Brent, thanks so much for coming on, and I'll see you around. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. SF Live special coverage from the New Orleans Investment Conference. Hit that like and subscribe button. Follow us here on YouTube and Twitter, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think about what is going on in the markets, and what do you think of this conversation. Thank you so much, and we'll be back with more soon.